Okay, it's not recording, so I'll start over. Okay, sorry. So guys, I'll start over. It's not recording. I'll start over. How do I log off? Okay. So I'll start over. So that you can review later. So forgive me if I'm starting over the different slides. This will benefit you when you get your All of Us access. Um, so thank you, Eric, for telling me that we're not recording. Um, so again, this session is about exploring All of Us research workbench through demonstration. It is not a training session. I suggest for more detailed topics, go to All of Us training courses or ask All of Us support. I don't think that you have project-specific questions yet, but um, there is a link um, in open online courses for All of Us project, and that includes all of the topics that we will cover for the project, and we will be doing it chunks of steps at a time for the next few weeks. Okay, before we don't have a midterm, before the spring break. Okay, hope we are targeting to get this done with by the spring break. Okay. Um, but if you have any questions that are project specific, please just put in a hashtag project question at the end so I can change my framework on how to answer you. And finally, after this session, we will break out into small groups. Um, as I mentioned, we always break up into small groups um, every session to work on your assignments, but this time you can work on your assignments and or also work on All of Us. And those of you already have access to All of Us can probably do a show and tell. Okay. We will cover cohort building, concept set building, and data set building for this session. Maybe if we have time, some data prep. Um, but all of the other stuff like data input creation, data cleaning, model training, and results reporting will cover in the next weeks. Um, we will be creating a workspace, but there's an introductory course available in All of Us to create your workspace, and we will just be needing an educational workspace for the purposes of this project. You will be creating 4 data sets. One is the person demographics data set, um, a data set for all the persons who are dead, a data set for persons and all of their diseases, and the data sets for all of the persons' antidepressant medications. These are the 4 data sets that major data sets that we will use and process for our first project. Okay. And now we'll go through the demo. So to log in to All of Us, you need a Chrome browser. Okay, because All of Us uses the Google Cloud platform, and one of their security features is the Chrome browser. So log in with your All of Us account in your Chrome browser. Go to their Workbench page, workbench.research.allofus.org. The first time you log in, I think there's a default workspace. Uh, so a workspace is where all of your data, all of your codes are there, and you can share it with your team. Okay. Other research participants in All of Us can also look at your workbench so that if their research is similar to yours, um, they can actually look into your workspace definition, and if they're interested, they can contact you gain access to data or your codes. Okay. So again, you can create a workspace. So we can select this. And we create a workspace name. Like for example, here, this will be antidepressant. We will limit ourselves to the registered tier. Again, control tier is optional. So we'll just limit ourselves to the registered tier, but we will use the latest dataset. Registered tier dataset 7, version 7. Initially, you will have $300 of credit. I've been using this for a while, so I only have $194 left. So $300 will get you a long way. You can do lots of research even outside of this project. Our own project is not that bad. That the data set is big, about 9,000 participants, but it's still not that big, right? For example, one of my other projects has 400,000 participants and like millions of rows of columns of data, and that ate up all of the resources of the main researcher. Okay. If you chose research, you will have to enter more details. So for these purposes, I really recommend that we use educational purpose. They won't be that strict with an educational purpose, but we will still have to put in some details that are correct. Okay. So what's the scientific question? So this is a project for my course in EHR analysis in at George Mason at PMU. Okay, I will look into antidepressant effect impact success rates for African Americans. Right? Okay. So approaches will be you just put in use Python and SQL to check likelihoods of remission from various antidepressants given patient characteristics. Something like that. Right? What are the anticipated findings of the study and how will your findings contribute to the body of knowledge? See how antidepressants affect African Americans, right? Compared to their baseline effect, right? So that's what we're actually interested to do in this project. So there's a research online in that we will be basing on that has the baseline effects of antidepressants. It's called a race neutral effect. So that 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 model or that research tested the effects of antidepressants, but they did not look into race. They're race neutral. Now we want to see if the findings of that study will work well or will not work well for African Americans, right? So do the antidepressants work better, the same, or worse for African Americans? Okay. And then in this question, we choose other. and then just post in class, presentation, and report. Okay, what are the things that we are looking at? So maybe this, you want to reduce health disparities, right? Um, and then we are actually interested in historically underrepresented populations, particularly African Americans. Okay, so we select that. And then finally, select no here. We will not be stigmatizing African Americans. We just wanted to see if there's a different effect for African Americans for these antidepressants, right? We will not infer anything about African Americans based on our results. We will infer something about antidepressants. Right? These antidepressants were not tested well for African Americans, or these antidepressants work just as well for African Americans. So we will see. We will see. We have to do the research to see, and then create a workspace. But I won't do that because I already created a workspace. Okay. Once you enter your workspace, there's two things that you will see: cohorts and dataset. These will be empty at first. Okay. So in all of us, you can create a cohort and you can create datasets. As I mentioned, as I've shown you in my slide, there are actually some more steps in between. There's a creation of concept set as well in between before we get to a dataset. So let's define each of these, and then let's do them. So what's a cohort? So in research or in experiments, okay, yes, you do also cohorts, not just in research. You'll run cohorts when you are doing experiments in healthcare administration, in marketing. Okay, so a cohort is a group of people that you want to include into your study. Okay, a cohort will have inclusion and exclusion criteria. So, for example, um, there will be a cohort for everyone in all of us, right? So that's one cohort. So your inclusion criteria is if you're in all of us, I will include you um, in my research. Another cohort is um, all all people from age 18 to 75. Yeah. Okay. So it's a group of people that you think will give you will help you answer your question or help you make your experiments successful. Okay, so in our case, our cohort will be African Americans. Okay, African Americans who have major depressive disorder. That means they should have MDD, but they do not have bipolar disorders. Why? Particularly because um, medication between people with MDD and bipolar disorder are different. We want to study the effects of antidepressants only. So to remove any confounding effects, we will remove those with bipolar disorder in our cohort. Okay. Now, why didn't we choose specific antidepressants? Because we want to study African Americans with major depressive disorder and without bipolar disorder, whether they're taking your antidepressant or not. Because we want to really find the effect of your antidepressant and compare it with other antidepressants. So if that is the cohort that we want, so based on the slides, okay, I just want to review our inclusion criteria. Our inclusion criteria is African American with major depressive disorder, and our exclusion criteria is bipolar disorder. And we do that by clicking this button to create a cohort. When you create a cohort, there's always just be there at the beginning. There will always just be one box. Okay. So what's our first criteria? African American. So when you click this add criteria, there's a lot of these data that all of us tracks for cohort creation. So being African American is a demographic data, and it's a race. It's under race. So you select race, and then these are all the valid race for participants inside of all of us. Okay, so there's whites, blacks, people who did not indicate, Asians, those that did not answer it, those that have more than one race, okay? Those and so on. Okay, we will select African Americans, and then you just click on this finish review and save criteria. Automatically, all of us will update a dashboard here at the right. You can play around with it, but we actually have 78,321 African Americans in the All of Us database. Okay. Okay. What's the other criteria that we have? So it's African American with major depressive disorder. Okay. So after you put in your first criteria, there will be other boxes that will appear. Okay. If you put the criteria inside of the same box as your first criteria, it will be an or. If you put it on the box to the below it, it will be an and. Okay, so or, as you see here, and then and. Okay, and you put it to the right, it will be excluded. It will be an exclusion criteria. So it's African American and having major depressive disorder. So we add a criteria in the box for and. Okay. So major depressive disorder is actually a condition of the patient in terms of an EHR data. So an EHR data have conditions, procedures, drugs, labs, right? Visits, observations, devices. So we will look into conditions. So this is how conditions. These are all the conditions inside the All of Us database. We can use this search code to search your particular condition that you want to look into. So we will just put in major depression. And then there's major depressive disorder. You select that. And you can see that once I selected major depressive disorder, it's also selected major depression single episode. So all of the things that relate to major depressive disorder are also selected. Okay. This is because in the EHR, conditions are also related to other conditions. Okay. So when I selected major depressive disorder, it also selected those that are related or equivalent to major depressive disorder. Okay. There's also a hierarchy button at the right. You can click that to visually see that major depressive disorder has actually a parent of a lot of other conditions. Okay, so if you have major depressive disorder, it will also mean It will also mean a single episode, a recurrent episode, um, a mild major depression, right? And so on. Okay. But it does not mean, as you see, it does not mean menopausal depression. It's different. It does not mean minimal depression. It's different. So I'll go back to the list and I'll finish the review and save the criteria. So from 78,000, we find that though African Americans that have major depression are only 11,000 in our database. So in the All of Us database, we reduced our cohort from a possible 78,000 to now 11,000. But there's still another thing that we have to do. We have to exclude those with bipolar disorder. Okay. So that means we add it on this table to the right, exclude participants with bipolar disorder. Again, bipolar is a condition. And then again, search it, bipolar disorder. And then let's select bipolar disorder. And similarly, it will select everything. And we finish review. So from 11,000, yeah, there's only 9,408 left. So our cohort is now complete based on our definition of the cohort, which is African Americans with major depressive disorder but without bipolar disorder. So it's now complete. There's 9,400 participants in this cohort. We can click now, create the cohort. Let's name the cohort. I already did a cohort name, Blacks with MDD without bipolar, but it already exists, so I just put in like maybe 2, right? But in your case, you can omit the 2. I'll put in 2 so that I can save. You can put a description if you want. I won't. So let's save. So once you created the cohort, you can proceed with creating a data set. But I would like to show you how to review your data set. Review your cohort first, because I want to show you how each our data looks like. Okay. So let's create a review set. It's an optional step in All of Us, but it's a good thing to show for demonstration purposes. So I create a review set. I said maybe 100 participants are the name of the review set. And then I just choose like 100 participants and then create the review set. So these are like the top 100 participants in our cohort. As you can see, each participant ID is clickable. So let's click one of them at random. So this lady, and these are all the data that All of Us has on this participant. So all of us, the participants, volunteered to share their data to researchers for advancement in the medical field. Okay, so it has all of this person's conditions, right? It has all of the procedures that they underwent. For example, this lady had their esophagus repaired. Okay, all the drugs they are taking, observations that that the healthcare system made of them. So, for example, this lady is probably insured, right? Um, any measurements, physical measurements, and laboratories um, results, hemoglobin, um, cholesterol levels, lymphocyte levels, vital statistics, and although this last part, surveys, is not part of an EHR, it's also um, it's also one of a good data that all of us has on its participants that allow um, researchers to really do good research, because um, you cannot put lifestyle inside an EHR, but you can ask someone a survey on their lifestyle. So this will be able to get those data that are not usually entered into an EHR. So this surveys, we will not use it because it will probably mess up our um, our outcomes. But some researchers also work with surveys. We won't. Okay. So that's all of us. But the first time I saw this, wow, oh, so this is how EHR data looks like. Okay. So because um, like some of you guys haven't had an opportunity to really um, use an EHR before I got into this course. Okay. But yeah, it's really cool. And now that we have our cohort and we have an idea of how the data is stored or what kinds of data are stored for our cohort, okay, we will now design our data requirements so that we can help with our concept set creation. So concept sets are are what are data points that you want to get for your cohort from your cohort. As you saw when we did a review, there's a lot of data for that cohort, right? In order for you or us to be able to be more focused on our analysis, we have to decide which data we want to take, and a concept set allows us to decide which data to take, and once we do that, we can create a data set from that concept set. So a concept set is like a design for a data set. Okay. So based on our project page, if you read it, okay, we need certain types of data. We need antidepressant, personal data, age data, gender, sex, survival, diseases, and so on and so forth. So once I process that already for you, you can review that page. But what I found out is we will need demographics, particularly age, gender, sex at birth, because now gender might be different from your sex at birth. Okay. Um, and you will see as well in all of us, they sometimes will be different. Okay. Um, race and ethnicity. So there's in healthcare research and in EHR, they differentiate race from ethnicity. Ethnicity, usually the question is, are you Hispanic or not Hispanic? Okay, Hispanic or Latino or not Hispanic or Latino. And for race, and they are the values that we just saw earlier: black, African American or black, white, Asian, more than one. Okay, and then you will find a word called survival. It just means um, dead people, find dead people. So, um, and so we will find age at death. Okay. So as you can see, we don't put in dates. We put in age, because if we put in dates, that might violate some privacy concerns when we process data and reveal the results or give people access to our data set. A birth date is sensitive, a death date is sensitive, um, in some scenarios, but age, um, is something that cannot be easily traced back. Okay, traced back to the person. Okay, so for example, there's a person that I reported an age of death of 65. If they don't know when they died, they cannot really trace that person. There's a lot of people who died at 65, for example. Okay, and then there's also, I need a table or a data set for diseases. So I need a data or a concept set for all diseases. We'll also see that you'll need medications. So I need data for all the antidepressant medications, as well as the age at first intake of the antidepressant. Again, I didn't put in the date of the first antidepressant intake. I just wanted the age. Okay. Of course, the data set will contain dates, but as we move forward with our projects, we will convert those dates into ages. And once we have complete data set, we have complete data on all the age, we can drop identifying data like birthdays, and any dates, even the patient ID. We can drop that. We don't actually need the patient ID to run analytical analytical models. So we will do these concept sets. Okay. So again, let's go back. So there's no real way to create a concept set inside of all of us. It's hidden inside creation of the data sets. So let's click that. Let's click create a data set. Okay. So our first data set based on our design is demographics. So the first step to create a data set will be to select your cohort. We created this cohort, blacks with MDD without bipolar 2, right? So I created this. So we select that. So from this cohort, I want to track demographics. So we have to select a concept set for demographics. By default, all of us already has a demographics concept set. So that saves us some time. We don't have to create a concept set for demographics. It's already created for us. So we click that. Okay. And then from the concept set, we can now select what are the data points that we want for our analysis. Okay. But for me, I find it easier to first click this view preview table. It will show me, this is called data exploratory analysis or data exploration. Um, I want it's useful for me to explore the data first before I select which one I need and which one I don't. Okay. Okay, so this is how the data set looks like. Well, the data set will look like. It's a preview. If we selected all, right? Because by default, it selected all. If we selected all data points from this concept set, this will be what the data set will look like. So we have a person ID, we have a gender concept ID, and then we have a gender. So a gender concept ID is just like an ID for a specific gender. So if you are not a man, not woman, only preferred not to answer or skip, if that's your gender, then your gender ID is this, like 20, 200 million, 2 billion, 2 billion 2. We have date of birth, and then race concept ID. So Black or African American, they're encoded inside the database as race concept ID 8516. So if it's 8516, it's Black or African American. Okay. For veteran analysts, usually they just use this because they already have a cheat sheet of all the of what these IDs mean. But we are beginners, right? We are in this class beginners. So we will import both the IDs and their definitions, right? It will not be optimal because that means just to get one piece of data, you have to import two columns where one column should have sufficed. But yeah, this is educational. This is not yet actual research. But again, when you are in the industry, you might want to optimize your process to only use one column. Yeah. I usually use the ID, right? I will use the ID because it's more efficient. Like this is more efficient to the database than this, right? So mostly we will be needing everything, right? Except for race. Why? Because we know that all of the people in our cohort are blacks. So actually, if we import race, that does not uh, teach us anything new. So I will select everything, right? I want the person ID, of course, so that I know what for which person this demographic information belongs to. But I will just deselect race and race ID. Okay, and then I'll review the table again. See for one last time if it's what I want or what I need. Okay, and then finally click create a data set. We'll name the data set. So this data set is I already have HAP464 demographics. Yeah, so I'll just put in HAP464 demographics 2. And then you can put the description if you want. I'll save it. Okay. And before I click analyze, okay, um, I will show you how to create the other concept sets first. Okay, but in other workflows, you can click analyze whenever. But now for this particular demo, we will click analyze later on. Okay. So I'll go back to data. Click this data. I'll go back to the home page. I just wanted to make sure that I have created that the demographics data. Yeah, demographics 2. And then I'll create the data set again. Create the data set again. But this time, my data set will be all the dead people, right? All dead people. Survival. Yeah, that's my data set. I need a data set with all the dead people. Now, by default, so up to this point, Fitbit sleep level. So they have, all of us even have Fitbit data. All of these are standard concept sets in all of us. As we see, there is no standard data concept set for being dead. Okay, I created one is dead here. I'll show you how I created it. So for more details on how to create a concept set for dead people, go to the projects page of for our All of Us project page. And then there's this document here, creating survival variable. I created that last year, last semester, to show you step by step how to do it. Okay. So I'll show you how to do it, but I won't save it. Okay. So now there's no standard concept set for being dead. You have to create one. So here we select in the select concept sets, we just click this plus button to create our new concept set. For there's two types of dead people in All of Us. There's death as a condition, and there's death as an observation. Um, we found out through trial and error that there are more dead people in observations than in conditions. So to not complicate things, we will use observations, but the proper way is to have an or condition. Like if you're dead in conditions or you're dead in observations. For simplification, we'll just use one. So we'll just use observations. Okay. And based on this, we select death. We search for death. And then we select all of these: death in the hospital, accidental death, death, sudden death. Okay, so death in hospital, right? Accidental death, death, sudden death. Okay, we select all of them and then click finish and review and save the concept set. Okay, so I will not finish. I will not click finish and review because um, I found out that creating multiple concept sets um, is tricky. Okay. So once you create same concept set, you have to put a name. So that name is dead. Okay. So once you have created that concept set, you go back to data, create the data set, select blacks with MDD without bipolar, and then select the concept set that you have just created, is dead. Then view the table. Explore the data, try to get a grasp of the data. Okay. We actually only need for our analysis an age at death. Okay. So for our analysis, we only need age at death. We don't need most of these, right? There's a lot of data for an observation. So we only need the person ID, who is dead, and the observation date time, when they died. Okay. So I just need to select two things. So I can unselect all other things. So there's a button here, deselect all, right? I deselect all, and then I just selected the things that I want. Person ID and observation date time. Okay. And then I will create that data set. And then this is a HAP464 survival. Survival 2. Okay. And then I will save. And then similarly, I will not analyze yet. I will not click analyze yet. We will click analyze successively later. And then the last, there we have two more concept sets to do before we create the data set. So diseases, okay? This is another, when we create a data set, there is also no standard concept set for diseases. So again, in this scenario, you will click this create a concept set button. Okay, diseases are conditions, so we go to conditions. And there's actually a concept set for all disease. So if we look at the hierarchy, these are all the disease that a person can possibly have inside of all of us. Okay, so AIDS, abscesses, acute disease, and they go on and on and on. These hierarchies can go on forever. Yeah. So we select conditions and then just select diseases. Disease. We could select finish and review. We can select save a concept set. Okay. Our concept set name will be has disease. I will not save it again because I don't want to replicate concept sets, right? But once you save the concept sets, discard changes, you can now select it. So blacks with MDD with bipolar. And then there's the has disease concept set that I have. And then let's view the table. Now this table we will require for a lot of our analysis because diseases may impact effectiveness of antidepressants. Okay, so they may for example, a patient might be taking medications that are impacting the effectiveness of another antidepressant or something like that. Okay, or they're having this disease hinders the effectiveness of another of antidepressants. So this is something that we will actually really want to have a lot of data on. Particularly, we will need to know the disease, when it started, right, and when it ended. Okay. So we will need who had the disease, what's the disease, like a code for the disease, and then when is the start time and the end time. Okay. For diseases and for conditions, we are more interested in the standard concept code. Standard concept codes are industry standard um, coding uh, for medical conditions or for medical procedures. Um, there's a lot of standards out there. So we will hear in your studies things called ICD-9, ICD-10, ICD-10, CPT. For all of us, they use SNOMED to track conditions. Okay, so we will use SNOMED codes. We will not use condition concept ID. This one is just an internal tracker inside of all of us. Okay, so we will use person ID. We will want the name, the code, the start time, and the end time. Okay, so those are what we will need. So the person ID, the name, the concept code, the start time, and the end time. Most of the others we will not need for the analysis. And then we'll create a data set. Again, HAP464 diseases. Oops. There you have it. And our final concept code will be for all the antidepressants. Okay. So again, there's no standard concept code for antidepressants or medication. So we will have to create. And antidepressants are part of drugs. So go to drug exposures. Okay. Antidepressants. Search antidepressant. And then select these three. Okay. Antidepressants, other antidepressants, and antidepressants in combination with psycholeptics. Okay. We finish and review. We call the concept code like antidepressants, but I will not do that. Okay. And then we can now select that particular concept code. So antidepressants. So for antidepressants, again, we need the standard code, the name of the antidepressant, standard, the standard code, and then when it started and when it ended. However, for drugs, we can see that there are other data elements that we might need. Because for drugs, you will, particularly for the analysis that we require, we will need how many days they have taken the drug. So we will need also day supply. Okay, so it will be person ID. Okay, I'll deselect all. Person ID, the concept name, the concept code, the start time and end time of the drug, and then also we want to know how many days of supply you have, because I might be given a drug for a span of 3 months, but my supply is only for 1.5 months because I take the drug once every 2 days, right? So the day supply is also something that we will need. And then I will create this data set, and I will call it HAP464 antidepressants 2. There you have it. Now I have all of the now I've created all the concept sets that I need and all the data sets for those particular concept sets. I can now generate them. Okay, and so the next step is how do we generate a data set? So in all of us, when you generate a data set, it will be transferred to code. Okay, it will be transferred to code. So we just go to the data sets that we created. Here below here, data sets, the data sets we created. We go through them one by one. Okay, so we start with demographics. That's the first data set we did. And then we just create analyze. The first time you do this, the first time you click analyze, you will be asked to you will create a new notebook. Okay, so we will create a new notebook. We'll call that name HAP464 project 1. But I already created that, so let's put in 2 at the end. Okay, and then you can select a code, a programming language you want, Python or R. We will use Python. We will use Python for this course. Feel free to use R, but I will only be able to guide you in Python. And probably your Teach One peers will also only be able to guide you in Python. And then click export. So it will generate a code for downloading that database into a Python data frame. Okay? Into a Python data frame. I will go back to the workspace. So just click this. Click your workspace name in the navigation above. I'll click this. Go back to my data set. Select the next data set. Click analyze. Now, the second time and succeeding times that you click analyze, you can actually select the notebook that you had just created. So I'll go click this project 1, 2, and I will export. And then it's exported. Okay, do that 2 more times for the two data sets the last 2 data sets that I need. And one last time. Data sets. There. So now we have this big chunk of code. Don't be overwhelmed. You won't be needing to understand. You don't need to understand all of these codes here. I don't understand it. It just um, downloads this from the database into a Python um, data type. Okay, so from a database into Python. So that's all you need to know. Okay, so we are actually done with exporting our datasets into code. So now our datasets are in code, um, and we will now be able to do our code analysis. Okay, and I'll show you how to edit code before I move on to the tips, and before we do a small break and and then when you come and then break down into groups. Okay. All right. The first thing that you need to know before editing a code is this code runs on all of us servers in Google Cloud. That means you can configure how big or small the computer is. So at the right pane, there's this cloud analysis environment button, right? And there's a small circle there with Jupyter written. Okay, you can't read Jupyter with this with a small screen, but it reads Jupyter. When you hover your mouse there, it will say Cloud Analysis Environment. You click that, it will allow you to um, change your computer environment. So, for example, you find that it's been so slow. Uh, it's maybe not because uh, your own computer is slow, because it does not run on your computer. It's because you have a small server. Okay, so this you can configure um, your server however you see fit in order to run your data. Our data set that we will process is not that big, so you won't hopefully you won't need it. But just in case, because some of my other students did need to adjust it. By default, the configuration is 4 CPUs and 15 gigs of RAM. That's just a similar setup to your laptop. Like if you're using an Intel an Intel i7 i5 computer, it has 4 CPUs. And if you have 16 gigs of RAM, then yeah, 15 gigs of RAM right um, is like the same, right? Um, you can increase any of this. So for CPUs, you can get a server with up to 96 CPUs, right? And when you select that, you can get up to 624 gigs of RAM, but that will cost a lot. So at 96 CPUs, 624 gigs of RAM, it will cost you $5.69 per hour. Okay. You will also see another cost called persistent disk. You will get 120 gigs of storage a month for all of your data, and it will cost you $4.80 a month. As I've told you, $300 will go a long way. I've been using this for um, 9 months now. Yeah, I only spent $106. So if we compare this to just 4 CPUs and 15 gigs of RAM, the default configuration is just 20 cents per hour. Okay. At the most, I think you might want, if it's still slow, right? You might want to increase it to 8 CPUs and 30 gigs of RAM. So double the capacity. But if it's still slow, it might not be, the data set is small. It might be you're doing something wrong, right? You're maybe having an infinite loop. You're doing things inefficiently. Yeah. I'll put it back to 4. I want, um, and then you can also change the timeout. By default, 30 minutes of that that your server is not running. Your server is not running for 30 minutes. It will pause. That means your hourly rate will stop as well. Okay, so by default, but sometimes people want it to be 8 hours, even days. Like just leave the server running. I don't For this project. I don't see why you will do that. And you can also change your disk from a standard disk to a solid state disk. For example, if you want very fast, um, very fast performance, I think a data set is quite small, but your cost per month will jump from $4 to $20. Okay, so just leave everything, and if you and for whatever reason do not click this delete environment. If you click that, then your project's gone. You have to do things over. So don't click that. Okay. So that's how you set up your environment. So when you go, when you are in your workspace, you click on analysis, and that will take you to your notebooks. Your notebooks contain your codes, right? Your codes. You just select the notebook that you want to work on. So in this case, this is the notebook that we have just created, HAP464 project 1. Okay, and then you will go into a read-only mode of that notebook. You can do a playground mode, where you can play around with the code, but you can't save the code. You can run programs that you can't save code. So sometimes that's useful. I don't do that. So I just click on edit. The first time that you do this, every day or every few hours or so, um, it will reboot the server. So it will take a few minutes. But if you just, for example, left your computer to like example, make coffee, and you come back and you saw that you're back in read-only mode. When you click it again, it will take a faster time because the server is not yet stopped. But after an hour or so, the server will stop. An hour or so of inactivity will stop. So spinning it will take a while. So now the server is spinning. I'll just show you. And if you are no Python, um, there's also a skill that you need to learn, which is Jupyter Notebook. You need to be able um, to know how to handle Jupyter Notebook. At the minimum, how to write and run code in Jupyter Notebook, and how to write files and access files. Right. If you are more fancy with Jupyter Notebooks, if you're more advanced, then it's a good thing to share with your classmates during like the laboratory session. So it's taking a lot of time. Okay. I just want to show you. Oh, it's not properly. Okay, still just have to wait. So it's spinning up. Okay. Let me try to open my other notebook. So I actually have a pre-made notebook for the first set of um, tasks so that I can train the teach one. I'll try to, yeah, it works faster. So this one will work faster. Okay. Okay. They both caught up with each other. Okay. So those of you who are not familiar with Jupyter Notebook, I'll give you some commands that are very helpful. Um, or so the first thing that you have to know is this button. If you click that, it will add a row. It will add a cell below your current cursor. So before I put the cursor here, I click that button. It added a cell below that. Now my cursor is here. I click that button again. It will add a cell. Okay. There's a shortcut for deleting that I know in an offline Jupyter notebook, but here I don't. So you can just go to edit and just delete cells. It will delete the current cell where your cursor is. Make sure, and then there's an undo delete cells if you made a mistake. Hopefully you don't. Okay. Um, and then you can write code, right? You can also change this um, to a markdown cell. So it will create a markdown cell, and here you can write anything. So it's like a Word document, like hello world. So it's right. It's a markdown. You can put headings by using hash signs. So hash will create a top heading like this. So for example, hash heading 1. Then hash hash will be heading 2. Hash 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 will be heading 3. And so on and so forth. And then you can click this button to run a particular cell. Or if you're in a code cell, they have their own run cell button. So, but if you are in a markdown cell, you have to run that the first time, and it will do it this way. Okay. I will delete that. Okay. Now we'll delete this. So this is my reference code. I will show you guys one by one how to do parts of the code, particularly those who are doing the teach ones for that topic. Um, and then we will also discuss it during class, and the teach one people will also know the code so that they can help you. So again, Python is integral. We'll try our best to give you the support that you need, but we will not teach you Python. Okay. Um, so this big code, right? I don't understand 99% of it. I just need this. Okay. So what I need, the first thing that you will do is create a notepad, right? And then just remember the sequence of events, the sequence of how you imported your data set. The first data set that we imported is for demographics, right? Demographics. So I will just put here, copy this, that there, and then put a simpler name. For example, demographics underscore df for data frame. Why? I can easily remember demographics data frame, then dataset 08822614 underscore person data frame. So this first step will allow you to get your mind off this and focus on variable names that you can understand easily. The next thing that we imported is survival. So again, I go to the very bottom. I get that, and then I call this dead underscore df. The data frame that we imported is about diseases. I go to the very bottom. I select this. Again, remember, do not select the period and the head. I just need the data frame name. You can actually also copy this. Yeah, but my process is here. Okay. So this is the disease df. Diseases df. And then finally, the fourth data set that we created was for the antidepressants. So I copy this. And then AD antidepressant df. Now I add a row, I add a new cell, and then just call this rename data frames after import. And then I'll copy that. And I won't need this anymore. Okay. So that's the first step that you will do. And now we can run. You will run this code. So just click this. It will download the data from all of us database, convert it into a data frame. A data frame is a data type in Python, as you know, that looks like a table, right? So, and data frames are the best friends of data analysts and data scientists. Okay. And then we can explore these new data sets. So here, see, downloading, and once it downloaded, it will give you. So you can explore these data sets. Hot info. We see that person ID. There's 9,400 people in this data frame. And these are the data types for each of those columns. Okay. And this is surprising because um, because all of us is a very new database. There are very few dead people. So there are only 6 African Americans who have major depressive disorder but does not have bipolar disorder who are dead in the database of all of us, because again, it's a very new database and you have to like volunteer to be part of the database, right? So that means they were alive when they volunteered to be part of the database. So there was not enough years so that people can die of old age, right, or die of other means. reasons. Okay, so these are relatively small, right? Um, Diseases, there are actually um, how many it is? 4.7 million diseases for just 9,000 people, right? There's actually 4 million entries on diseases. So this is our biggest data set that we will process. Our most important data set that we will process is the antidepressant data set. Info. It's relatively small, just 200,000 entries. Most of the codes that we will run smoothly. This is the data set, the diseases data set, where some students became impatient enough and they increased their cloud subscription. Yeah. Um, okay. Before I confuse you more, I will stop there. Um, let's go for um, like it's 9:13 in my clock. Let's come back. Let's go for a bio break, or if you want to make tea or get water, and let's come back um, by 9:20. Um, and from 9:20 until um, 10, no, not 9:20 until 10. Um, some of you can discuss in groups, right? But I will need 15 minutes of time from those who will discuss the next each ones. Yeah. So we have until 10. Yeah. So I will split you up into groups by 9:20. That will be until 10. You can discuss within your groups. I will go around the groups. And those who will do teach ones, there's not enough time. I can um, I can coach. Who is the teach one for next week? Rasil and Mona, right? Rasil and Mona. Um, I will I will email you and let's coordinate offline. If we can like have like a 30-minute session the next few days, hopefully tomorrow, so that you have enough time um, to do this. Yeah, yeah. Because I wanted you to like work with each other on all of us. Okay, so 5 minutes bio break or water break, whatever. Um, then let's come back 9:20 and let's work in groups, and I will go around in groups. Okay, see you in 5 minutes. I will stop sharing. I will pause the recording. How do I do that? It's just 5 minutes. Okay, so I will split you up into groups. Um, there are currently 20 of us here, including me, 19. So I'm thinking 5 groups of 4, right? And then actually there's 4 groups of 4 and then 1 group of 3. Um, I will when I start the group, okay, I want for each group that I will go to each group one by one. But when you start the group, one of you should share their screen. Um, so you can discuss 2 things. Either you discuss all of us, you share your screen and discuss all of us. So probably the people who have completed all of us registration can share their screen and discuss, and people, or you can discuss the assignment on how to create an abstract. Um, okay, and we will do that until around 9:50. So that's 30 minutes. By 9:50, we'll go back to the main room and then do some last minute last announcements, and then We'll stop the class. Okay. So I'll now click breaking you out into the groups and see you in your small groups.